Before I start, I would mention a couple of persons, particularly Alex Carrel, who was a French vascular surgeon and Nobel Prize holder. He performed microvascular anastomosis already in 1902. So he is basically the father of microanastomosis. In the neurosurgery, the first clinical application was done by Yassergil and Dunagi, as everybody knows, in 1967. But the beauty of this field is that since over 50 years, and we celebrated shortly the over 50 years of bypass surgery, but if you see since 1967, technically there is not much change. Basically the similar sort of technical expertise, you need hand motor skills, and otherwise technically not really much changed. So I would go through shortly about the concept of the bypass surgery. This is really interesting concept given by Fadi Charwell from Chicago, that you can, not going into very complicated classification of the bypass surgery, but you have two indications. So one is the flow preservation and other is the flow augmentation. In flow preservation, you lose a vessel due to some reason, for example, due to a complex aneurysm where you trap the aneurysm and you need some sort of revascularization. The other possibility is, for example, the big skull-based tumors, where the affection of a big vessel can lead to a sacrifice of vessel and you need some sort of revascularization procedure. The other arm is the flow augmentation. That's basically the functional occlusion of a vessel, for example, the ACI occlusion or the Moya disease with multiple intracerebral vascular occlusions. So vascular bypass surgery, I would divide in basically two big groups. That is possible intracranial bypass, where you can really take the revascularization from cerebral vessels, not going outside. The other possibility is the intracranial extracranial bypass surgery, where you take a vessel from outside the brain and anastomose it into the inside. There are different terminology. I would just mention about the standard bypass. That's a low flow STMC bypass. There are medium flow and high flow bypasses. So depending upon how much the flow in the vessel is. So I would just coming towards the evidence-based medicine. In both of these fields, there is no randomized clinical trial. We have no level A evidence in the area of complex aneurysms and skull-based tumors. However, in Moya, Japanese Moya trial showed that both in hemorrhagic Moya and ischemic Moya, we have a benefit of anastomosing. In atherosclerosis, as Aruba has a very much impact on the AVM, similarly in atherosclerosis we have few studies, and co-study is one that has a major impact on the neurovascular bypass surgery. So I would go through on hand of a couple of examples that we don't have here, for example, evidence, but still we need, and I show you a few, one of the example, for example, where the things do work, although we don't have level A evidence, because it is difficult basically to perform randomized clinical trial in the giant aneurysm surgery. So going first, just to show the evidence, I give you a case of a patient with 50 years old patient. She has a pericallosal artery aneurysm, and she was a part of currently running clinical trial Protective, where we give the aspirin as a treatment therapy to stabilize the aneurysms. And if you see here, over a time period of 2 years, the aneurysm was grown around 8.2 millimeter. If you see the complexity of the aneurysm, because the decision, interdisciplinary decision was made to treat this aneurysm, there was no really good option for the endovascular coiling, hence we decided for the surgery. And here you see the base of the aneurysm is inflammatory. It gives me already an impression that this patient may need some sort of revascularization. And the strategy was in this operation was used that we trapped this aneurysm and performed a side-to-side anastomosis. So just going through the video of just to illustrate that. So just illustrating the case that the cerebrovascular bypass surgery can be still needed, although we don't have evidence in this field. But here you see again the morphology of the aneurysm that is complex, and they perform the standard peritomy, and you go along the falx here, preparation of the pericallosal artery till you reach the area of the aneurysm. And then, just as I showed in the scheme, the first attempt is to try to clip the aneurysm or reconstruct the aneurysm, and if it is not possible due to inflammatory nature of the aneurysm, then we trap this aneurysm, and then if you cannot rely on the collateral circulation always. So in this case, I went distal and brought the opposite A3 from the falx to my side, and now put a, so technically it works like that you do the arteriotomy similar to every other bypass, and then perform the basically already published technique, side-to-side anastomosis, where the back wall will be sutured with the continuous suturing technique, and then the front wall will be sutured with single sutures. The reason for the front wall suturing with single suture is that you can, if you have some sort of bypass failure, you can open a single suture, and you can, if you have a thrombosis, you can open up a single suture and you can work on that. So now completing this bypass, as we use always all adjuncts, we do use neuromonitoring during the bypass surgery, and such sort of bypass surgery, and then control with the Doppler that the distal vessels are patent, and at the end we perform the ICG angiography that shows that vessels are patent and working. The perfusion postoperative is very normal, and if you see this area, if we have not done the bypass, I think that we could have damage in brain in this area, and certainly with neurological deficits. So this case, for example, the bypass saved very nicely, and is not very much invasive. 3 by 3 centimeter craniotomy is does not make so much invasive technique. Just I'm going towards a little bit of controversial topic where the COAST study made a huge impact on the number of surgeries in the area of the cerebrovascular bypass, that is the functional occlusions area. So here is a scheme showing the simple SCA-MCA bypass that was basically established by Yasser-Gil and performed very often in the 70s and 80s. And I would go first towards the main trial that was held in 1985, the ECC bypass study that failed to prove the efficacy of the bypass, showing that more surgical morbidity than the medical group, with major strokes they were 4.5%. However, there were still a lot of critique on this study with multiple factors that were not included, and that's why in the field of bypass surgery there were 2 big trials that I would like to mention. That one is the JET trial, Japanese trial, and other one from USA, COAST trial. The COAST trial, first I'm going towards the JET trial, that was basically the comparison of medical management versus bypass plus medical management. And very nicely selection criteria that basically covers all the aspects that are needed for the bypass surgery. I just look over the main results. If you see the combined mortality and morbidity, so we have around 5% in this case, and that trial basically showed that 14% versus 5% is a positive trial and recommends to perform the bypass surgery. Okay, so I just go through about very fastly on the COST trial. Here, that is also another randomized controlled clinical trial that basically showed a very high morbidity, a very high rate of the recurrent strokes, about 15%, that basically came out a negative trial. So finally, I would go towards our work trial. We should basically we'll go through the basic clinical examination, perform the MRI scans, angiography, 6-vessel angiography, and CT perfusion, or the PET analysis to have the exact estimation of the perfusion results. That is basically the key that decides whether the patient needs a bypass or not. During the surgery, general anesthesia, continuous blood pressure monitoring, and avoiding the blood pressure lower than 140, normal ventilation, and no hypothermia, no brain relaxation. So I will finish my talk with the final, just a case. For example, here a case of stent stenosis in the ACI, and in this case, you could save the MCA territory through a simple STA-MCA bypass. And I would thank you very much with this last picture of Düsseldorf, and you are most welcome to come and thank you very much.